that all great civilizations in the world developed along river banks. The rivers have been sustaining life in its various manifestations and glory. The importance of rivers in India can be understood by one simple fact that almost all rivers are worshipped as goddesses. Yamuna, the consort of Sri Krishna, has played a significant role in shaping the history of India right from the days of the Mahabharata till today. An interesting fact about Yamuna is that it has a richer history and a valuable contribution to enriching culture, art, architecture, commerce compared to River Ganga. For a majority of people in India, while Ganga is Mokshadayini and therefore all death-related rites are conducted along its banks from Haridwar to Varanasi. The ashes and bones of the dead are released into the Ganga to ensure a safe passage to the other world. Yamuna, on the other hand, is Jivandayini. Along its banks flourished history, politics, trade, culture, and the Vaishnavite Sri Krishna Radha Bhakti movement. Starting in Uttarkashi district in the Himalayas from Yamunotri glacier, it enters Dehradun, flows close to Jagdhari and Yamunanagar in Himachal, separates UP and Haryana, enters Saharanpur in UP, touches Kurukshetra, Karnal, Sonipat, and the famous battleground of Panipat. The epic Mahabharata was written on its bank. Saint Parashar and Satyavati gave birth to Vedavyas, Raja Bharat, and the father of Bhishma. Shantanu organized great yagnas, and for thousands of years great saints and thinkers lived in ashrams along the Yamuna banks. Leaving Haryana and UP, Yamuna enters Delhi, which for 2000 years has been the seat of power and politics. The Mughals and later the British built dozens of monuments and forts. The river once again enters Haryana, and three of its big industrial clusters, Vallabhgarh, Faridabad and Palwal, depend on its water. Once it enters UP, the river's profile changes as a whole mythology is woven around the Yamuna. Sri Krishna lore would be incomplete without the river. From Vrindavan to Bateshwar in Agra district, it is Sri Krishna and Radha and their Leelas that sustain literature, culture, faith and philosophy. Vallabhacharya, the blind bard of Brajbhasha, Surdas, the medieval Bhakti movement and the Meera tradition blossomed along the Yamuna banks. As the river leaves Mathura, it enters the famous Renuka Dham. Renuka was mother of Bhagwan Parshuram. A little distance away, the river suddenly takes an eastern turn as it enters Agra, the capital of the Mughals. River is now joined by half a dozen other smaller rivers like Parvati, Khari, Utangan, Gambhir, Karbana. Beyond Agra, rivers Betwa and Chambal merge into Yamuna, which eventually joins Ganga in Allahabad. The purpose of this historical perspective is to make you aware of the great contribution and heritage role of River Yamuna. You should feel proud of living along its banks. No other river in the world has a richer history, culture, or religious significance, and as the sister of Yamraj, the god of death, its star status in Indian mythological tradition is permanently etched. Yamuna finds its mention in Rigveda. The founder of the Mughal dynasty Babur was lyrical about the quality of Yamuna water, confirmed by medieval historians and foreign travelers. Both Abul Fazl and Lahori have written extensively about the Yamuna water. It was the Yamuna water that compelled Shah Jahan to build his dream monument, the Taj Mahal along its bank. Pandit Jagannath wrote the famous Ganga Lahari, but in praise of Yamuna he wrote the Amrita Lahari. Such was the quality of his water. But what of today? How do we describe Yamuna today? A sewage canal, a drain, a big gutter, a civilizational sink? From the life-giving Amrit to death-dispensing poison has been the cruel tale of this river, which even in its dying stages is sustaining the life of millions of people. In the past 25 years, government agencies have spent millions of rupees, crores in fact, to clean up many Indian rivers, but even the latest report of the Ministry of Environment and Forest candidly admits that both the great rivers of India, the Ganga and the Yamuna, continue to flow dirty. The funds have been spent on cleaning the drains that lead to the rivers by putting the sewage in treatment plants and the sanitation facilities. Unfortunately, we do not see any improvement in the overall situation. The pollution load continues to increase. To quote a government committee, the quality of water in the Yamuna River has not shown the desired improvement, particularly in Delhi, due to enormous increase in pollution load and lack of fresh water in the river during the lean period. Due to ever-increasing population, leading to increased pollution load and gap in the availability of planned outlay, there is persistent divergence between the pollution load tackled and the actual pollution load. No proof about the poor quality of Yamuna water generally unfit for human consumption between Delhi and Agra was ever required. But when lakhs of fish continue to die at regular intervals both in Agra and Mathura, it is natural for alarm bells to ring. The city of the Taj is heavily dependent on Yamuna raw water, but unfortunately, despite a series of ambitious projects and the direct intervention of the Supreme Court, the government agencies have dismally failed to prevent pollution of the river. The Yamuna meanders through Delhi over a 48-kilometer stretch, picks up a huge quantity of chemical waste and toxins. There's also more than 225 million gallons of untreated sewage every day. When it enters Agra, the river is overloaded with additional discharges from industrial clusters in Faridabad, Ballabgarh, Palwal and Mathura. What the people in Agra get to drink cannot be called water by any stretch of imagination. Sadly, the State Pollution Control Board and the Central Pollution Control Board have failed to address the problem of water pollution in the river. All the directives of the Supreme Court have been flagrantly violated or ignored. The Central Air and Water Pollution Prevention Acts give unrestricted powers to these statutory bodies to proceed against polluters, but the corrupt officials have never been sensitive to the gravity of the problem. Indeed, when the devout enter the river Yamuna for a ritualistic dip or an archman on festivals, they never fail to have Sakshat Darshan of Kali Nag in the form of pollution that has reached an alarming level. At several points, the river water is jet black with a thick layer of waste floating on the surface. River Yamuna is integral to the Vaishnavites who worship Krishna. What can be done? Now let's talk about this. As ordinary law-abiding citizens, we often feel helpless. River cleaning is not a priority item on the national agenda. Although a large number of NGOs, pressure groups, eco-clubs, citizens' movements have been active and have been doing their bit to clean up the Yamuna. But given the size and dimension of the problem, these piecemeal and sporadic efforts cannot yield any tangible benefits. Some years ago, we realized that the people of Agra had completely forgotten there was a river in the city. Till the 1970s, the Yamuna banks were centers of cultural and religious activities. During the 1975 emergency, Pakka Ghats and temples were razed to the ground to make way for a riverfront like the Mumbai Chowpatty. That never happened, and what we were left with was a vast stretch of wasteland and debris piled up. Yamuna's degeneration, in a way, synchronizes with the political decadence that set in after 1980. A citizens' initiative was launched by concerned citizens in April 2015. We called it the River Connect campaign. The idea was to bring people back to the river and sensitize them. With this objective in mind, we began the daily Yamuna Aarti Sabha on a piece of wasteland, which we cleaned up and named it at Madala Viewpoint Park. Now more than 1,000 days old, this campaign has worked both politically as a pressure group and socially to create a high level of awareness by involving all sections of people in river-related activities. Our primary focus has been on a barrage downstream of the Taj Mahal. Guarantee of minimum flow of 50 cubics of water around the year. We are now trying to get the Parliament to adopt a national rivers policy with the Central Rivers Authority. Also, some of us feel the armed forces can help us in launching one of the biggest cleanup operations. They have the trained manpower and equipment. If they can lend a helping hand, groups of citizens would come forward to offer car seva to clean up the riverbed. To you, all I would only say that you should feel proud of your river heritage. You love the river, go to the Ghats and spend time there. Take pride in your history and your culture. Only then Yamuna would be safe. Thank you.